Hello everyone, welcome to Elixir of Faith, Season 1, Episode 2. It took a while to come back to this beautiful room, but we finally made it. So yes, we're here with Mark today. Just don't go anywhere, we're coming back in a minute. Alright, so we're here with Mark Laurent.
Yeah.
Is that your name? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, that's good. That's
Laurent?
good. Yeah. It's originally it's French, so it'd be Laurent.
That's what I was going to say.
Everybody in New Zealand says Laurent, so
Yeah.
Laurent. That's what we
could
say.
Be the French probably
Laurent.
pronunciation.
Yeah.
Laurent, something like that.
Yeah, Laurent. Yeah.
So do you have relatives back in France?
No, it's quite a few generations ago now. Yeah.
So you're Kiwi.
I'm a Kiwi boy. Yeah.
Born and bred.
Yeah.
That's good, man. So you're from Auckland or any other country?
No, I've always lived in Auckland. I've travelled a lot, but I mostly lived here. I lived on the Coromandel for a few years and in Wellington for a long time ago.
Nice.
But I've been to quite a lot of places, but I always come back.
You always come back home. There's nothing like home, right?
Yeah.
Tell me. What's your relationship to music?
My story.
What's your story?
Yeah, well, my dad was a professional jazz piano player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
that's so cool.
Both sides of my family were musical. My grandma on my mum's side, she used to play kind of honky-tonk piano in bars and stuff. But my dad and his brother were both musicians. My dad was a professional musician all his life. And on my mum's side, a couple of my brothers were my mum's brothers were drummers and pianists and things. Wow. Mostly all jazz. And so when we were kids, in the weekend, like it's a Sunday today, so on a Sunday afternoon, my dad and his friends, and they were all professional musicians, they'd get together at somebody's house and they'd have a potluck meal, and they'd just jam.
Oh, wow.
And us kids would all be outside playing, and I wasn't interested.
What a fantastic way of celebrating Sunday.
It was kind of like world-class music, but you just take it for granted when you're a kid.
Oh, yeah.
But then the Beatles...
So you just grew up with that?
Yeah, I grew up with that, and I wasn't interested, I had piano lessons, but I didn't want to I wanted to play outside with my friends, And then the Beatles came along, because I'm pretty old. I mean, this is back in the 60s.
Well, just don't tell anyone.
They can probably see that already now. But the Beatles came, they were a lot older than me, of course, but I first discovered them, and I started to think, this might be cool, and I asked my mum and dad for a guitar, and I was the first one in my family to play guitar. And because they were supportive of music, they were really good. They didn't say, "Oh no, you have to learn classical or you have to do jazz." They just said, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah,
whatever. And they bought me a guitar, and I had a guitar for a little while, and I learnt maybe two songs. And then I had a friend. He had a collection of comic books. And I swapped the guitar for his collection of comic books. Yeah. So that's how committed I was, But then a couple of years...
Good start.
Yeah, but then a couple of years later when I was at school, and I started to realise that one of the girls in our class gave me this photo of the Beatles, and it was signed. I mean, it wasn't really signed. Well, it was, it was a photo, a printed one, but it had their signatures, so they didn't actually sign it in person, but it was one of those. And I remember I had this photo of them, and I just somehow I thought, wow, that'd be really cool to do. And then there were some guys at my intermediate school. They were brothers, the Kingi brothers. They weren't just they must have been brothers and cousins. They were Maori family, and they were all musicians. And three of them got up one day at assembly. There's two guitarists and a drum. I don't think it was actually bass and guitar. I think it was two rhythm guitars, and drums. And they did a song. It was like it was on the radio at the time, so it was quite cool. And I thought, I wouldn't mind doing that.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, and so I asked
I
asked my mum and dad if I could get an electric guitar. And again, they were cool. They said, yeah, okay, let's.
Did they ask you if you were going to trade it again for more comic books?
No, they didn't.
They trusted you?
I guess they did. I guess they could see I was, serious. And so that was it. I was into it, and I'd sit in my room every night, and my dad... he had tape recorders, reel-to-reel recorders, and he let me use one. He set it up in my room, and I had it plugged into a radio, and I could listen to the radio, and I could record all the songs I liked, all the Stones and the Beatles and the Kinks and all of that stuff. And so I just had these tapes full of all my own playlist, you know, it was long before mixtapes or anything, but I just had them. And so I'd listen to this stuff and I just was soaking it up and I'd sit there playing along with it. And
so you were pretty much self-taught?
No, I did have a few lessons, but because I was so into it, I was learning faster on my own than the teacher was keeping up with, because it was a group class, you know. I mean, it was still good because he was a good teacher, but yeah, I sort of did my own thing pretty soon, and then started getting in bands, you know, and we'd started playing at school dances and stuff like that. And
when you were growing as a teenager?
Yeah, I did my first paying gig in 1970, so that shows you how old I am.
Wow.
Yeah, so and mind you, we didn't get paid very much, you know.
Well,
yeah, I've been around.
Those things haven't changed that much, right?
No. So I played electric guitar for firstly I was, you know, because I was into Zeppelin and Hendrix and Cream and all the guitar trio kind of thing. That was my thing, really, particularly, and Rory Gallagher, Taste, all that was what I wanted. Johnny Winter, all those kind of blues rock players and stuff, and that's what I really wanted to do. But I've always had poor eyesight. I was born with that, something that's congenital in my family, and so I couldn't drive. And so it was a hassle moving amps and guitars around.
I mean, we carry, right?
Oh yeah, we used to do it. You know, somebody'd have a Morris Minor, we'd pull out the back seats and we'd put the drums and the amps, and then we'd all sit on top of that stuff and have our heads down, you know, over the roof, you know, and all that kind of thing, and go to the gig. But somebody gave me an old acoustic guitar, and I started playing. I started carrying it around with me all the time, and playing at parties, and then I got into the whole hippie kind of culture. And so I was sitting in cafes and at, you know, sort of parties where everybody was a bit tripped out, you know, just playing the guitar. And I was quite shy. So having the guitar was quite good because it's like, it was a way into being at parties and people would like you, you know. Yeah. And so that, and I guess...
A way of integrating, you know.
I guess I probably hoped that girls would like me too if I could sing, you know.
Well, we'll discuss about it later.
yeah, off camera. It's funny. But that was kind of how I got into it, yeah. And then I've been in bands and I've made CDs, and but I've mostly been a solo player. But for years now, I've done a duo quite a lot of the time with my wife, who's a very good mandolin player and singer.
Oh, wow.
And so we do a duo, sort of, it's more folky. Like, originally I wasn't folk music, I'd think, you know, Peter, Paul and Mary or whatever, cringe. But see, then I found Bob Dylan.
Oh, yeah, another one.
Oh, yeah. And there was Donovan and then those guys. So they're all these real old school guys. But and of course now, so I still really like people like Jack Johnson and Ben Harper and all those people who have a lot of acoustic based stuff, and Gillian Welsh and all sorts of people like that. But so I mean, I've just sort of
that's so cool, man. Such a cool story. Do you still do, by the way, this kind of duo with your wife?
Yeah, sometimes not as much as we used to, but still quite a lot.
Do you think she would be interested in doing an extra session some other time here, the two of you?
I'm sure she would.
Okay, that would be fantastic.
Well, she could do one of her own. She's got her own whole story because she was involved in the environment and protest. She's quite into protest music and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So she did a lot of stuff, you know, that sort of stuff when they're trying to stop rainforests getting cut down. They go and lie down in front of bulldozers and all that sort of stuff. Well, she was into all of that
Remarkable,
stuff in Australia, like back in the 1980s, and Greenpeace and all that sort of thing.
Well, that'd be awesome to have her here, you know, for another show, and maybe you guys together and play something. I think that'd be fantastic.
We could do that. Yeah.
All right. So I would be very interested, probably because I'm a composer myself, you know, in knowing a little bit of the music you've composed, you've made. What things would inspire you, or what type of music were you interested in doing with your bands or as a solo player?
Yeah. Well, when I sort of was in the mid-70s when I started to think maybe I could write my own songs, because at first I thought, oh no, I could never write songs as good as Joni Mitchell or Bob Dylan or Cat Stevens or whatever, you know. Or Robert Plant and Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then I was doing some gigs, and I did one, and I came away afterwards, and I thought, there's some things I'd like to have put into that I haven't got any songs for. Mm-hmm. And somebody said to me, well, you should just write your own then.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it just, the penny dropped, you know, and I just thought, yeah, okay, I'll have a go. So the next time I had, and at those stage, now I in the early 70s, I became a Jesus person. I got into the whole sort of faith thing and stuff. And I was listening to a guy called Larry Norman, he's not alive anymore, but he was a big mover in that scene then, in the sort of the Jesus rock music kind of thing they called it in those days.
Yeah.
And so I was doing quite a lot of his songs, but then I started wanting to say other things, and so I had written 1 or 2 songs, but I never really played them. So when I started getting asked to do things again by those people, you know, by sort of the church type people, you know, because I was one of the only Christian sort of people around in Auckland at that stage who played kind of rock kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot, and
interesting combination, right?
Yeah, that's right. It was all. Some people were a bit suspicious of it in the early days. I mean, church people, I mean. But they got over that, you know. Now they're kind of totally uber into it.
Definitely. Yeah.
But anyway, so I started just using my own songs instead, and they were working. And I thought, oh, okay. So anyway, eventually I ended up making some albums, and then I moved into more general songwriting as well, and I kind of did a couple of real sort of Jesus-y type albums, and then I started doing more, you know, what people call secular mainstream things. But I suppose the things that I believe have always kind of influenced what I've written to some extent. But that was quite a big influence on me then. But once I realised I could write, and that people seemed to like it, well, I was interested in all kinds of. I listened to a lot of different, you know, from sort of Zeppelin and King Crimson to sort of, you know, Joni Mitchell and stuff. So it was a reasonably broad sort of, I suppose, spectrum of, you know, Crosby, Stills and Nash. So there was all these acoustic sort of singer-songwritery type things, and then there were the really kind of more hard-out kind of things. And so I was mucking around with bits of all of that, you know. This old guitar, I bought this in 1975. You can see it's
1975.
It's been through the, and it's actually a 1970 originally, so it's kind of officially a vintage now, which is weird because it was only 5 years old when I bought it.
It looks fantastic, eh?
Yeah, but you know, so there was like I just started writing sort of all sorts of things because I was into the bluesy sort of kind of stuff, you know, and when one of the people I liked was Rory Gallagher, and he was a blues guitarist, and he'd do a lot of this. A lot of singing with the thing, scat singing. So I used to do that. Was my gimmick thing, you know. When I do a show, somewhere in the middle of a rocky song, I'd throw in a bit of that, you know,
something of that,
and so I developed this because of my eyesight and because I was going more and more to acoustic. I was still playing electric as well, but I was moving more and more to acoustic, and but I was using those styles, and like probably the most influential guitarist on me, if I had to pick one, would be Jimmy Page.
Oh yeah,
because he played both electric and acoustic. And he mixed up the styles, and so I did a lot of Zeppelin songs, you know, and stuff like that. And then when I started writing my own stuff, I started to try and incorporate some of those things, not so much the riffs, but you know, the sort of that's part of a Zeppelin song called Thank You, but those progressions I'd sort of I'd started to use them, you know, that sort of stuff in my own songs, and so I tried to get a rocky feel, but while it was just acoustic guitar. So
and that was just by yourself, or also with your bands?
Oh no, well yeah, with I was playing with bands. I had a band called Little Wing, and we used to do a lot of. Well, we actually did the Hendrix song Little Wing, but it was pretty eclectic actually. We did some slightly more jazz rocky stuff, and we did.
That's cool, man.
But cool. Now it's just kind of songs of all sorts, and I've done quite a lot of albums. I'm not sure about. I've been involved in something like about 30 albums.
30 albums.
Well, wow, some of those are other people's that I've either played on or produced or both.
That's phenomenal,
and some of them have been compilations, and a couple of them have been 2 or 3 of them have been commissions where somebody's been doing a project and they've wanted music for it, so they've got me to do it. I've done maybe about 11 of my own or something, and then the rest of those would be either compilations with other people or those other things I was describing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Different genre?
I've done a lot of studio,
Uh-huh.
and again, the studio doesn't interest me as much. Once upon a time, I was hanging out to just get in a studio and have a chance to record, and I guess I've got a little setup at home so I can record if I want to. But it's just part of getting older. You just don't need to do some things as much, you know.
Yeah.
But if I felt I had something to say, if I thought I had some new songs that really mattered.
You would do it all over again?
I would probably do an album again, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not there at the moment, and it doesn't bother me. You know, sometimes if you're a songwriter and it dries up for a while, because you have seasons, you know.
It is, totally.
Yeah, and if it dries up, I used to get paranoid and think, oh no, I've lost the gift.
I've lost it. The
but
pieces are gone.
Yeah, but it comes back.
They come back. They always come back.
You just let it go and just realise, oh, that's winter, you know, so the thing's having a
Summer
sleep.
will come back again.
It'll come back again. Yeah. And so I don't worry about that anymore. And the thing is, even if it never came back, although I mean it does, I've still written a few things lately, but nothing like as much as I used to.
Uh-huh. Well, you know, you never know.
Well, I saw an interview with Bob Dylan a couple of years ago, and I think it's actually been around for a while, but I saw it on YouTube, and he was being asked about some of his real famous songs, you know, like that he wrote back in the 60s, and how did he get the inspiration? And then they said, and then he said at the end, and it was really interesting, he said, but I couldn't write songs like that now. So even Dylan, he knew that was a stage for him, you know.
Exactly.
He had the zeitgeist for a while, you know, and maybe he doesn't now, but he's still a competent songwriter, but he's not going to write Blowing in the Wind again now, you know.
Oh, definitely.
No.
What are you going to play for us today?
Oh, I'll do this song called Streets of Auckland, because since we met on the street the first time we met. Yeah.
On Queen Street.
Yeah. I wrote this a long time ago, back in the 1980s, because I originally used to busk in the 80s, and then I stopped for decades, really. I only started again just a few years ago.
All right. And, please go for it.
Okay. Town for most of my life, and I've been around, but I come back here all the time, because the place is much more than lines on a map drawn together. Oh, the beaches, oh, the mirror glass, oh, the uncertain weather. If you ask me why, I couldn't explain the streets of Auckland. Up on K Road, there's a bag lady walking in her second-hand clothes. With herself she's always talking, and I wonder why this is. Did the city do this to her? Because the people walking by, you know, they just look right through her. If you ask me why, I couldn't explain the streets of Auckland. Was a sleepy old man near the fountain in Albert Park, and he's been there probably won't leave until well after dark. The flowers grow, the rain comes down, but he never seems to notice. And all the students, they hurry right by him. Well, you can see they think that he's kinda gross. If you ask me why, well, I couldn't explain. The streets of Auckland, I walk these streets tonight for the 10,000th time, and I've been this way so often now. Oh, I could almost believe this whole town was mine. Sometimes I thought of leaving, but mostly that was only talk, talk, talk. Because the grass is always greener, they say, on someone else's sidewalk. If you ask me why, well, I couldn't explain. If you ask me why, I couldn't explain. Streets of Auckland, streets of Auckland.
Oh, bravo, my friend.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Love the fact that you actually picked a song from Auckland, because
Yeah, well, that was
this
just
is all about local musicians.
local
so,
musicians.
I
Yeah.
loved it.
Well, I guess I'm probably about as local as they get, really. Yeah, I wrote that a long time ago. It was on an album back in the 1980s. Actually, the album was called Millennium Hippies, so that'll give you an idea of where we were at in those days.
How old
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny to say, I did that album last century. You know, it's kind of like,
Looks
oh,
like,
man.
wow.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah. So I guess I could have played more recent ones, but people seem to really like that song.
Amazing
Even in
song,
other
man,
countries,
yeah.
I've played it in England, and I played it in Australia and in the States and stuff, and people kind of get it, you know, because it's. I think if you write about stuff that
It's inside
is
of you.
that's inside of you, that's also that's universal, you know, things that
how
everybody
you feel
can
just
recognise.
walking down the street, or people that
Well, I got those
pass by.
ideas. I used to busk in the 80s, and then I didn't do it for decades. But but I got those ideas from just watching people on the street, you know, and meeting them, you know, because people come and talk to you.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, actually.
Like
people,
I did.
Yeah, that's right. And you wouldn't normally just walk up to somebody on the street and talk to them, but somehow musicians, it's all right, and that's good, you know. I like it.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of welcoming somehow or something.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir.
That's fantastic.
It was a pleasure to have you here. And lovely music and lovely stories. And
thanks for giving me the chance to be part of it.
Yeah, well, you know, the pleasure is
it's good
ours.
what you're doing.
Yeah. Where can people find you? I guess on the internet or.
I've got all the usual, you know, Facebook and sort of YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel. It's just under my name. Bandcamp. I've got. I think I've got about about nine albums on Bandcamp. And Bandcamp's quite good because they're high quality, you know, they're FLAC files or WAV files, so you can get CD quality files. And, you know, Reverb Nation, I don't actually bother with them much anymore, but, you know, I've stuck stuff in a lot of those places.
So Spotify maybe, or?
No, I'm not on Spotify anymore.
YouTube?
YouTube, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. There's about 118 videos or something on it. A lot of them are ones that people had taken at gigs or things, just sort of. So they're not a few of them are professional ones, but a lot of them are just sort of amateur, and some are better than others. But it gives you an idea of what I do anyway, and it's free music to watch.
So if people would like, for example, to find this music, they would need to go to either Bandcamp or YouTube.
Well, they could just put, if you put my name, Mark Laurent, and that's Laurent,
Mark Laurent,
and my website's just www.marklaurent.co.nz.
Okay.
That's pretty simple, and it's not a very good website. It hasn't been updated for a while.
It's all about music.
But it's got the links, it's got links to all of those places, and my email address and all of that stuff. So if anybody wants to contact me, because I do regular gigs as well, I don't just do busking. Although I really like busking, but just in case someone would be interested. I would personally be interested in listening to that song. Well, I had another song that I was playing the other day. I can't remember. It was that's why I was doing music at one of the farmers markets. And a guy came up after, he says, "Oh, I love that song. Where'd that come from?" And I said, "Oh, it's one of mine. It wasn't this one. It's another song. That wasn't that one I just did." And he wants to learn it, so he's gonna. So I gave him my card, and he's gonna email me. And I said, "Oh, because it's an honour if somebody wants to do your song." You think, "Oh, that's
definitely
nice."
You're gonna get covered.
I mean, who knows? He might really murder it, but he may do a wonderful job.
Could be,
But just the fact that he wants to is a real, that's a nice thing. And so I'm always happy if somebody wants to do that. And I've had bits of music used in film soundtracks and things like that occasionally.
Great.
Fantastic. But because I do some instrumental stuff too, ambient kind of solo guitar usually. And there's a few of those up on YouTube actually. There's a few videos, and I've created sort of video slideshows or things like that to go with them, sort of thing. But they're all ambient and sort of fairly reflective, of one way or another.
Well, I think that will give the audience an idea on where to find the stuff and how to look for you. So marklaurent.co.nz. Exactly. So there you can find all Mark's music over there. All right. That was fantastic again, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. And to you guys, I'll see you. Everybody. I'll see you guys very soon on the next episode with another musician from Auckland. And thank you for staying in there. If you like this, what we're doing here, please share it with your friends. Or if you have any friends who play music or who do something related to street music or busking or something, and you would like to have them here, please let me know. And I'll see you guys soon.
Have you hit Luke Hurley?
No.
Oh, you want? Off camera. We'll tell you that one.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.